Reducing rejects or maintaining speed. Most shops feel like they have to choose, but that's not always the case. Today, we're talking about how to break that trade-off, and I'm joined by two experts who have spent years helping operations do exactly that. Jason Potts is back with us today, bringing a practical shop floor perspective on plating performance and process controls. He's worked across a range of finishing environments, helping customers troubleshoot issues, stabilize production, and improve consistency without overcomplicating the line. Always good to have him back to share what he's seeing and solving in the field. Also joining us from Pavco is Shane Moore, decorative team manager with 28 years in the metal finishing industry. Shane specializes in decorative coatings and has spent his career helping shops improve appearance, consistency, and overall bath performance. He brings a strong understanding of how plating chemistry and process conditions come together on the line. We'll be right back.
This is Molly Kellogg, President and CEO of Hubbard-Hall, and this is our podcast, Seen and Solved. In each episode, we will share practical solutions to complex surface finishing problems. Let's listen in to the latest episode.
So Jason and Shane, welcome back. I appreciate you joining us today. Very important topic we're going to talk about, but thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
Before we get started, Shane, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your experience in the industry and maybe a little bit about Pavco and all that you all do.
Okay, sure. I'll start with Pavco. So Pavco started in 1948. Found their niche in the alkaline zinc market, and they specifically the low cyanide. They were one of the first inventors of the low cyanide zinc, and then went on to produce the cyanide-free alkaline zinc. And they dominated the market there, started developing some decorative products. And then after some acquisitions and further development on top of those acquisitions and products, developed some really high performing decorative products. And with my experience in the decorative side, that kind of became my responsibility. And so that's been kind of where I've built my career, and it's been very rewarding. I've been in the industry for almost 30 years, and I've been with Pavco for 14 years as of last month.
When was it, Pavco, when you all opened that beautiful lab down there, right? How many years ago was that? That was
about 7 years ago, I believe.
7 years ago? Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, with that.
It's impressive, by the way. It is very impressive.
I'm actually in we call it Pavco University. It's a part of the package that you get, when you go with Pavco is complete training. You can actually come on site, and we have training rooms here. We have a pilot lab that has basically every process that we furnish. So if you have, sample parts or prototype things, that kind of thing, or just want to see what we can do, then, or what our finish will look like or whatever, then you could come down. We welcome you to come down and, visit the facility and meet all of our people and get trained on our products and play in the pilot lab.
Yeah, let's talk about this. First of all, when we talk about rejects, where do you see most of the issues that are contributing to rejects? Where are those occurring? I mean, is it in the plating or in the actual plating process, or is it somewhere upstream? Where are you all finding some of these issues that are popping up?
Well, unfortunately, they're normally spotted by the either the QC person or the person unracking the parts. And it's unfortunate because by the time they see something wrong, that means there's a lot more rejects coming behind it. Sometimes if an operator is experienced enough, he may be able to spot, some changes to the parts as they go through the line. Maybe it looks a little different when it comes out of the cleaner than it normally does out of the acid. And then if that's the case, then they can notify the supervisor or whatever plating manager, and he can address it sooner than having to wait until after all the parts have come out.
Jason, what about you? Where are you seeing most of these?
I would say, like on an automatic line, it's more difficult to see the rejects until the end. If it was a manual line, you could see maybe water breaks or some inconsistencies in the line, and then when you could stop it from getting to the plating bath before it gets there.
And how much do you think is tied to maybe a shop that's really trying to speed up the line a little bit? How many of the rejects percentage would you say is tied to that?
Percent wise, I don't know if I could really give it a percent wise, but we do see the fact that when the line is sped up, you're less time in your cleaners. You're trying to get the work out. You could, even if you're clean and you get the parts clean, you get into the plating bath, and because you're going faster, so you have to go less time in there. Maybe you're not meeting the spec or thickness spec, or you're getting roughness because you try to plate fast or burning. So that's typically what we see when you try to speed a line up.
Yeah, so you've got less time in your cleaners and then your acid activation, and especially if it has weld scale or something like that on there, then it may remove some of it, but leave enough behind to where you see that pattern at the end of the line. And then you have to kind of trace it back to where that pattern came from. And a lot of times it's because the line was sped up, it didn't have as much time in the acid to remove the scale. And like Jason said, roughness, because if you've got parts, especially parts with like tubular type parts that have a lot of scale and things on the inside that aren't removed, and as they accumulate in the bath, like in a nickel bath or something like that, the filter isn't enough to keep up with it, the particles that it's generating. And so sometimes that can lead to roughness and some other rejects.
I'm sure both of you have a story or two to tell about how a shop has tried to quick fix an issue like that, which usually ends up not helping and actually setting things back, right? I mean, what are some of the things you've seen shops do over the years?
Over add to compensate for something, rather add in brighteners, wetters. Over adding, it's a short-term fix when the problem could be somewhere else. I've seen, I would see that they would adjust rectifiers, adjust your rectification to compensate for for something downstream, or, whether it's in the electrical cleaner or the plating bath itself.
Shane, anything you've seen that they've been trying to get away with sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen the same thing Jason was mentioning, over adding. So if they may have like a, haze from organic contamination, or maybe they were etching in the electric cleaner from chloride drag-in or something like that. But instead of addressing the actual problem, then they just add more and more brightener. And then after, if you accumulate too much brightener, then you have problems on down the line after that. So you start having some issues after the nickel because you have such a thick brightener film. And then a few other instances I can think of. We had a customer that whenever they would accumulate zinc from, plating a lot of the zinc die-cast parts, then they just had the routine. They would dummy plate at the end of the shift. Well, if they ran nothing but zinc die-cast during the day, then they had a lot more zinc contamination than they could keep up with by just dummy plating. So they'd have to shut down the dummy plate and then start back up. And so, I mentioned, maybe we should look at ion exchange. So we did that. Now they have it on ion exchange, so it's continually removing the zinc instead of having to wait till the end of the shift, so they don't have to shut down production anymore.
Wow, that. I'm sure that cost a pretty good dime for what they were doing with that type of thing.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned some rinses and cleanses. What are some upstream issues that are going to drive higher scrap rates that you see that are going on besides just the actual plating process? What are some upstream issues that you see sometimes?
I would say a lot of times, the manufacturer of the part does not notify the applicator that there's been a change, whether it's oil, different types of oils, different types of material. A part sat around, they become rusty. Somebody, food dropped on them, there could be oil from something else. There's so many things that you see parts coming in. It amazes me, the condition, and that can seriously, cause some serious rejects down the line if you can't identify it.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just dirty hands, not using gloves or things like that to rack the parts. There's been so many times where they're having a reject and I'm like, that looks a lot like a fingerprint. Where so they're just using dirty hands, maybe the reject started after lunch or something like that. And like Jason was saying about the different oils used, we had a customer that was having a problem that had just recently evolved, and we traced it back and found out that the manufacturer was using a different machining oil and forgot to mention that it was full of paraffin wax. So by the time they got into the plating line, they didn't have their soap cleaner and electric cleaner temperatures high enough to melt that wax. So instant rejects.
Exactly. Yeah. But very, very, very few instructions come with when the semi pulls on the dock, right, about what's changed or anything like that. It's like a very big guessing game, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and by the way, paraffin wax is a monster.
Yeah.
Everybody in the plating industry understands how bad that is, I think. So
Definitely, definitely. I think Shane, you were mentioning, most of the time they're not going to see these rejects until they're taking the parts off the rack. But what are some, early warning signs that things are going to go, things are going awry, they're not right? What are some early signs that people should be in these shops should be looking for, or could be quite obvious to them?
So a Hall cell is an incredibly useful tool. It plates a panel from a very high current density to a very low current density. So it's much higher and much lower than what they're currently plating, the current density rate that they're plating in the tank. So a lot of times you'll spot a problem before it actually gets into that area. So you can, address it then before it actually becomes an issue.
as Shane said, the whole cell, I want to quote Randy DeSano. He says the whole cell is the EKG of the bath, which, really tells you the condition of the bath and where it's at. So, I mean, the whole cell is great. It's a great tool. You can, some visual things on the line, look for oil, oil on the rinses possibly, because you're just going to drag your parts through that oil after removing it out of the cleaner. Look for your acids, you look at your acid tank, see if it's contaminated. You could check with a whole cell panel, a stripped whole cell panel, see if you get copper contamination on it. Make sure your rectification is correct too.
And make sure that you, like a wet, a nickel or some type of tank that's supposed to be wetted. If there's zero foam in the tank, then that could be an issue too.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Sometimes, just eyeballing things will get you a lot farther. We talk about chemistry, but let's talk about rinsing. I mean, that seems to be a crucial step. How much does that play, these rinsing tanks, and whether they're monitored accurately, like you said, eyeballs on? How much do those play in whether reject rates are up or down on things?
A lot. And I would say, so when you talk about rinsing in upstate New York or any cold environment compared to maybe in South Carolina where Shane is, and I think if shops did this, you can actually track your rejects and see your rejects go up in the winter months because you have cold rinses. And your ambient temperature in the summertime, those rinses might be 50, 60 degrees. In the wintertime, they could be 40 degrees. So I look at it this way: when you wash your hands, if you try to get the soap off in cold water, it doesn't come off very easily, but you warm that water up, it really comes off. So I use that same analogy when I talk to platers, but rinsing is very important. Clean rinses. You don't want them over contaminated with, everything that you could drag in from starting from the cleaner all the way to the plating tank into, if you're doing passivates or whatever you might be doing post, you want to make sure you're rinsing well.
And I've seen quite a few shops where they think that recovery rinsing is a great cost saver. So after, say, a nickel tank, all of the rinses, they'll have dead rinse tanks afterwards, so they don't flow over and go down to the waste treatment. Instead, they use that water to pump back into the nickel tank, which it sounds like it's a great idea and it's a great cost improvement. You're not having to waste treat as much water, but everything that you're dragging out that that you're keeping from accumulating in the beginning, like organics and things like that naturally drag out, or you're putting that right back into the tank. And so that's going to accumulate faster and cause problems with organic contamination and or metallics or anything that you normally are dragging out, you're putting it right back into the tank.
Propagating the problem even more with that. When you've got two companies like yourself, Hubbard-Hall, Pavco, when you guys are working together to kind of troubleshoot a problem, where are you seeing, especially when it comes to rejects, where are you seeing some of the root causes first? What are some of the big numbers that you're seeing as far as what are some of the maybe first or second causes of these problems that you're seeing?
So I think your question is when we're working together. So we have, two sides of expertise. Obviously, Pavco with the electrolytic side, the plating side, Hubbard-Hall with the cleaning side of it, and then my experience also with the plating side. But a lot of times it's not just the chemistry. It's there's so many things on the line that you can take a look at, and maybe others may have thrown chemistry out of it. Actually, I'm doing a presentation where it shows basically you could throw expensive chemicals at it, but our approach is let's throw people at it. And we have a lot of experience between the two companies, and we work as a team, and we can identify problems and correct those problems and hopefully help the customer, at the end, we want them to use our chemistry, but also give them good, consistent parts.
Yeah, we've become a partner with all of our customers. It's not just that we supply them with the chemistry, we partner with them. And so we're with them, whatever problems that they're having, if it's Because usually it's either, physical, mechanical, electrical, chemical. So even if it's not, a lot of times I'll say, 80% of my job is proving it wasn't the chemistry, it was something else. But since we're in partners, then we're going to, help them find the problem. So a lot of times we'll find, AC currents or, ripple or, electrical grounds or something like that, that has nothing to do with the chemistry, but it's affecting their process. And so we're there to help with that. Hubbard-Hall being the expertise and having the expertise in cleaning, and us on the plating end. But we also cross over, our knowledge crosses over. So I know a lot about cleaning. They know a lot about, plating. So we can bounce ideas off of each other and come to a solution much quicker that way.
Like you said, it could be a variety of issues that could be causing a problem, or two smaller ones that are just sort of adding up and really causing a problem. But walk me through a situation where it was where you saw where it was kind of a small adjustment, a small tweak, a small fix, really made the biggest difference in fixing a reject problem like that.
So there was a company that was having problems. They were having problems with their trivalent, and they're running a chloride-based bath. And they said so typically a chloride base runs pretty close to saturation. So normally whenever you have to make a large addition of salt, let me back up. So it's much better to make small frequent additions than it is to make large infrequent additions, because typically you'll have to heat the bath up, make sure it's dissolved, and then cool it back down. Well, they decided that instead of cooling it back down, we'll just leave it at 140 all the time. That way we can dissolve everything right away, and we won't have to wait till it cools down and heat it back up and that kind of thing. Everything will run much faster. And I was thinking, how are you getting coverage at that hot of a temperature in a chloride trivalent chromium bath? So they said, and I noticed that the parts looked a little yellowish, and they said, yeah, everything looks great except for this one brown spot that we keep getting. So I said, okay, well, let me take a look. So I took the ball back with me, or the part back with me to the lab, and measured, and it turns out that the only chromium on the entire part was that little brown spot that they were complaining about. Turn the heater off.
Something like that, definitely. Something that you all were just talking about is really, when you guys work together on a project, where you've got the plating pretreatment expertise. I'm sorry, the cleaning pretreatment expertise and the plating expertise. That's really got to be a huge benefit for your customers when you've got that, as opposed to just you're looking at one element of it, right? But with we all working together, you're looking at the whole span of what could be an issue with that. I mean, that expertise is certainly, I think, going to be helping them in the long run.
We just recently had a install where it was truly a team effort, where you love the group text. I believe Shane was probably on these texts with us, and during the install you have one person there, and one person being me, but I have a backup of hundreds of years of experience, of people I'm talking to, and pictures and everything we needed to do to get the customer up and running. And it speaks volumes, because the customer was so happy at the end that we were able to fix their problem, increase their throughput, and give them some good chemistry and support that they haven't seen in a long time.
But when you're looking at these things, is there something that you all go to first, either looking at data or just eyeballing something, an observation? Is there something that you try to look at first, because that could be a really fast fix on what the issue might be?
So say if I go to an account and they're saying, that the part is bad, or the bath is bad. We always hear that. There's something wrong with the bath. The plating bath is bad, and it's always the bath problem. That's what they always, somebody always tells you. But I go back to the beginning. I start at the very front of the line. I'll go to the cleaners first. Let's make sure we're getting clean parts first. And if we're getting clean parts, let's make sure we're getting good activated parts. And if we're getting good activated parts, then we can start looking at, the rinsing, and then the plating tank, whether it's, zinc, nickel, chrome, whatever it might be, and then determine where the issue is coming from. And I think that's when you start hitting the wholesales, and trying to determine, what's going on in the bath. And that's usually how I approach it.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll actually just kind of audit the line and look for because a lot of times they just get so immersed in looking at the same thing every day, they don't realize maybe they could be tweaked or could be more efficient, or something that's just, is band-aided. They don't realize it's a band-aid, and sometimes that band-aid comes off, and so we'll just look at, like Jason said, we'll look at the cleaning, make sure they're coming out, water break free, make sure the weirs the solution is going over the weir, so it's removing the oils and the oil split type soap cleaners. Make sure that we're not getting etching out of your electric cleaner, as well as the acid. And looking at the rectifiers, make sure your voltage isn't going up to keep up with the amperage. Take a look at the anodes, make sure they're properly filmed, or if they're looking like an acid copper anode, if it starts graying, then you know that it's going bipolar. There's polarizing. So we're just kind of doing an overall audit of just making sure that everything is what we would recommend.
Seems like some of these things could be fairly obvious when you look at it. Why do you think some struggle? What's sort of happened over the years, do you think?
I want to use a term called process drift. And it's a lot of times it's a little bit is a lot. You just change a little bit and then it continues on down the line, and it ends up, it becomes, I guess you could look at it like, I'm trying to give you an example of how to look at it. If you, like, one day you come into the shop and you decide you're going to clean it 5 minutes, now you're going to go to 4 minutes. Well, then you're going to change everything else down the line, and that's just, that drift causes major problems at the end. And Shane mentioned something in the question before, the extra set of, the same thing you're looking at every day. When you bring an extra set of eyes in, it really helps out the shop itself, because you're looking at different things.
Shane, what do you think? What do you think could be the reason that you've seen where some shops struggle in this thing, which should be pretty fundamental, right?
Yeah, I mean, to keep everything consistent, I mean, like, they'll have maybe a preventative maintenance schedule, but not completely adhered to, or, maybe the production has increased and they haven't, brought in more staff maybe to be able to complete all of the PM, the preventative maintenance procedures. So maybe the soap cleaners are starting to celebrate birthdays. They should never celebrate a birthday. They should be dumped on a certain dump schedule. The acids, the dump schedule. Are they batch treating their nickel with carbon occasionally? What's that schedule like? Or because I've asked questions before that should have been a given. When was the last time you guys batch treated this batch? They'd never done that before. They didn't know it. So yeah, a lot of it comes down to just keeping everything maintained, and a lot of times that may start to maintain in the beginning, but then as production increases, or for whatever reason staff decreases, then a lot of that gets pushed to the side and just focused mainly on let's get this production out, and it doesn't matter that we haven't changed this in 5 years. Let's just keep going with production, and everything finally falls off the cliff.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Jason, I'm sure there's a scientific formula we could come up with for drift. Time equals.
Yeah, there probably is. I mean, just like there's a rinsing ratio called, I think it's DI times CT equals FR times CR. So, I mean, there's probably is yeah.
Yeah. Time equals, laziness or inexperience, and, everybody coming in and making their own adjustments, right? And it just keeps moving and moving to where it shouldn't be with that. So can you give us an example when Hubbard-Hall and Pavco collaborated for a client on a project, and what did you find and how did you fix it for them?
Our most recent conversion new customer here in upstate was having an issue with their alkaline zinc bath to where it was chelated, and it was giving them problems with waste treatment. So we did some testing with the Merlin bath from Pavco, which was not chelated. And after testing, they found that it would be way more compatible to trial this bath compared to what they have. So we went in, we did the conversion. The conversion went quite smoothly. It was a full team effort, and we were able to utilize the Pavco lab and their technology into increasing their production, because I believe they were running, I don't know the number of parts on a rack. It was quite low in order to get throughput, but by the end we were able to run full racks. We improved their cleaning from the Hubbard-Hall side, and the Merlin alkaline zinc was just unbelievable, and the support was unbelievable. So that was our most recent conversion where it was a team effort.
I want to go back to something that you both said. Maybe we'll finish on that a little bit. Getting another set of eyes, right? Getting somebody who, doesn't run that line every day, could come in, and someone like yourself, I don't know, between you, both of you have probably seen hundreds of other lines, right? You've seen the best of the best, and you've seen okay, and then you've seen some very bad ones, right? But really, it is bringing people in, like, from Hubbard-Hall and Pavco to come in, and I don't know why shops don't do this more, just to say, hey, take a walk through. Tell me what you see. I mean, do you have that happen a lot over time, where you see people just asking you to walk through and take a look?
It's something that we just offer right away, as a team. If I go in on a call, I'm having a problem, with XYZ chemical, can you come take a look at it? And what I typically will do is I want to look at the whole. I don't want to just look at the bath. That's just that if I just look at the bath, I'm not just going to try to sell you a bath and tell you this is your fix. I want you to be a customer for a long time, and I want to look at everything. And we have the capability as a team, partnering with Pavco and Hubbard-Hall is to offer them everything on that line. So that's how often is it? It's not as often as it should be.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like so we'll go in for an installation, and we want to make sure that that everything is as close to optimum conditions as possible. So we'll look at we'll do kind of either a full line audit or just start with the nickel tank. How are all the connections clean, and what do the anode baskets look like? What kind of filtration are they getting? Just look at everything, air agitation, whatever. And then after things get going, then we'll, because a lot of times you have a lot of time to wait. So parts will start in the soap cleaner and won't finish, for another hour. So during that hour, I'll start looking at other tanks and, looking at the rest of the line. And I mean, I go through with like an audit sheet, checking things off, but I just kind of just look. And a lot of times, most of the time, you'll notice something that can definitely be improved. And then usually at the daily meeting or whatever, then we'll address those kind of things and just try to help them be as efficient as possible.
Not, like you said, not just there to sell them, but to keep them operational, keep them as profitable, keep them as functioning as they possibly can, because that makes a good customer for both of you all if they're
Absolutely.
operating and they're humming along with that.
Yep.
Yeah, great. Jason and Shane, I appreciate it very much. You guys have a lot of expertise. I cannot add up how many shops you all have been in and how many problems you've solved over the years. But again, with Hubbard-Hall and Pavco, great combination there. So I want to thank you both for joining us today. We very much appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Our goal at Hubbard-Hall is to help you get better results with less chemistry. To hear more stories from the field, go to hubbardhall.com or wherever you stream your podcasts.